Hello and welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy the story. This was written by a real human. So please leave a like if you enjoy it to help the channel and subscribe for future content. It's free. Links to the story and Patreon will be in the description. Please go and support the author. Any support is always appreciated. If a human narrator would like to narrate my stories, please contact me. I write these in my spare time between work and my children and just don't have the time or quiet space to narrate them myself. I hope you can understand. Thanks for your time, and again I hope you enjoy the story. And for the love of everything YouTube, this is literature, so please leave my channel alone. Let's get into it, folks. Captain Therm reports his shields are at 64%, port batteries are slag, only 700 remaining missiles, 72 wounded, 9 missing. His communications officer reported. The New York. Captain Gregory asked. No report, sir. She looked at her console and shook her head. She blinked, sir, but I don't see her anywhere on our sensors. We have contact. His TAC officer yelled. Unknown vessel turning and burning away from us at point 7C. She pressed the console a few times and continued delivering information. Her shields are almost non-existent and no weapons on sensors. Engines are reading as oversized. She looked up at Captain Gregory and said, possible smugglers or opportunistic thieves? It's a Paula heavy freighter. It's not FTL capable on its own, Captain. Prior trajectory takes it as coming from somewhere near the second planet of the system. His XO says, if we were in U.S. Alliance territories, I'd definitely call that a smuggler, Captain. Anything else? He asked. Sir, there's no space infrastructure left in this system, and 2 moons that are supposed to be circling the second planet VAT are clouds of debris. Reading life signs. 2,799 on the back side of the remaining moon. VAT has been glassed. His TAC officer reported. On screen. Admiral Zong barked, and an image of a black dead planet, parts of its crust spewing superheated magma into orangish-red lakes dotting its eerie dark surface. A large cloud of debris littered its immediate area minus a clear path where the only remaining moon, itself scorched and cratered heavily on one side, orbited still. Streaks flashed constantly across the dead world's little remaining atmosphere as debris burned up, entering it constantly, some of them quite large. Neptune requests permission to intercept that freighter, Admiral. Stated comms. Let them have it. The Admiral said, where's the system FTL gate? Negative reading, sir. If there was a gate, it was probably closer to VAT and didn't survive. Said his TAC officer. Sir, distress signal detected, visual and audio, but it's rough. Said comms. Let's see it. Gregory said as he looked at the time. Keep an eye on those sensors and engineering, get that blink drive ready to spool up at a moment's notice. Recommend to Neptune to do the same. It had taken 3 months to get from Farsi to VAT after their initial blink out. And twice along the way that damn moon ship had showed up. Neptune had continued to be its target, like it was somehow drawn to it. Gregory surmised that was because they knew it was the one that had hit it with those initial darts near Farsi FTL gate. Yes, sir, he heard comms acknowledge, and a small box popped up to the side of the visual of VAT. And whatever it was that popped up on screen, it wasn't an Orion. It was amphibious, humanoid, and looked bipedal. It also had what looked like a cast of some kind on one arm and a bandage around its chest with a yellowish color bled through slightly. Reminded Gregory of an earth salamander, somewhat with smooth pinkish, almost transparent looking skin. Slavit mastabis statica. The figure said in a calm tone. He waited for the rough translation the computer spit out. We need help. Slavit girist villet. Again he waited for the translation. We have wounded. The figure continued, again calmly. We read you, Gregory said, looking at the Admiral, who nodded, and then back to the screen. It'll take us a little while to get to you, be ready? He had orders. They had had to space some of the broodlings as a small group of them managed to escape containment as soon as they were brought on board. The Marines had activated their mag boots and called for the shield to be dropped. The remaining captives had been very amenable after that. The lizard man nodded, flicking a tongue out like an earth's gecko and licking its eye. It began issuing orders, and before long the computer was translating in real time. Whoever that was didn't seem to know how to shut off the feed, or didn't care, because Gregory could see multiple different alien species moving wounded in the background. Everyone in that view, including the salamander lizard man, looked as if they had some wounds. Call Dr. Lee and have all medical personnel ready to receive wounded. He said, TAC, get us a path plotted through that debris cloud. I want those survivors on board, and I want us back in Sol space ASAP. Yes, sir. He heard in reply. As he turned to look at the Phoenix's systems readings, he cringed. This was going to extremely strain anything his ship could handle. There would be at least 2 hangars shut down from operating in any capacity. Admiral Zhang motioned to him to join him in his office. As soon as the door closed, the Admiral asked, "How bad will it be?" His gravelly voice was even more somber than his concerned look. "Sir, we'll be hard-pressed to make the necessary blinks back to Alliance territories. Our scrubbers weren't built for this many people. Period." Gregory let out a sigh, running his hand through his hair. "We can put some troops in the shuttles, I suppose, though the Marines won't be too happy about it. That'll get us farther. We'll have to see what the Neptune's remaining capacity is and probably move some people over. If the New York was here, I wouldn't worry. This wasn't meant to be a humanitarian mission, sir." He put his hand up to stop the Admiral's argument. "I know and ultimately agree it's the right thing to do. But we all need to worry about that damn moon ship." The darts were the only thing in their arsenal that could get through those shields at the moment. And they had tried everything the second time the damn thing had shown up on top of the Neptune like it had a homing beacon zeroed in on the destroyer. "I'm canceling the rest of the mission." He pulled up a file marked Top Secret E5, labeled as the header on his communicator, and flicked it up above the table they had sat at. Tex cracked that file off the dreadnought. "It's the blueprint for that entire moon ship. The shields, the tech to tear a hole into FTL lanes anywhere, anytime, and whatever the hell that energy weapon was that fried everything on Neptune's port side." He nodded his head in agreement as he looked at the behemoth's schematics literally in slices before him. He also had no doubt Sergeant Gregory had something to do with this knowledge. His XO had delivered the dreadnought schematics only a few hours after the emergency blink out of Farsi. His 2 bonded Viril would do anything Sergeant Gregory asked them to do. He would have to remember to thank the man later. He had been meaning to check on him anyway. After discussing the ship's design and possible weaknesses, they decided to grab some lunch and check on the progress of both the Neptune and recovering the survivors. Nearly 2 hours passed before anything tangible had happened, so Gregory was actually in his office, reclining in his chair when his XO called him on his communicator. "Captain, the Neptune has caught and boarded the Paula heavy freighter, and Captain Therm is reporting slavers, about 178, and around 1,600 rough estimate civilians of various species." His XO looked pale for a moment and then nodded as if to reassure himself. Sir, Captain Therm reports his boarding Marines. Space the trash, sir," he groaned. "On my way." He knew it wouldn't have mattered what ship's Marines had found those slavers. That's what the Marines had been calling it since there had been slavers found in space. Regardless, he knew none of those Marines would fess up to doing it. Or rather, every one of them would admit to it if one did. Which led to a bunch of report filing. And nobody liked that BS, so nothing else was going to be said about it. The trash had been spaced. He stepped onto his bridge about the time Admiral Zhang came through the main doors. He gave Gregory a feral grin as he walked forward to stand in front of the tac screen. "I heard the Marines took care of the trash problem on the Paula heavy freighter. Good men. Order a few barrels of beer to be delivered to the Neptune for their boarding Marines, please. XO, on me." He smiled even more, and that's when Gregory remembered he had been an ODT Marine himself before climbing the ladder to Rear Admiral through battle promotion. The man hadn't kissed any asses to get to his rank, and Gregory was convinced most everyone in the Senate was afraid of the Rear Admiral. Or rather, it might be better to say they're afraid of ODT Marines dropping in to have a chat. Rumor had it a few idiotic senators had been visited already. The XO acknowledged and probably started doing just that when the TAC officer reported, "Sir, we're approaching the debris cloud and the helmsman wants to initiate override Gamma Zeta 3 and request systems inertial dampeners be boosted as much as possible. He says this is going to get bumpy, sir, and the AI can only assist so far." "Do it." Confirmation Beta 557. Gregory said. "Initiate extreme G warning. Engineering, I want those dampeners working overtime if needed. We don't want compartments full of goo. Weapons, keep those point defense clusters working. If it's big enough to cause a problem, I don't want it to exist." People moved to comply, and pretty soon the orange light that indicated to any light gravity worlder on the crew to put on their suit to counter the heavy G's started flashing. Before he could even order a visual of the debris cloud they would be entering, it popped up on the TAC screen as if the woman had read his mind. "Thanks, TAC, easy does it." He knew he didn't have to say it, but he did anyway. "What are we looking at?" he asked. 37 minutes, sir," replied his XO. Gregory nodded at the man in acknowledgement, though he knew he was already busy at his station screens. The minutes ticked down slowly as the helm took them through the chunks of the floating moon. Only 4 times did the Phoenix even seem to buck, and only from minor hits on the shields as the weapons station's personnel efficiently cleared their path into a stationary orbit behind the third moon. As long as they stayed within its effective planetary shadow, they wouldn't have to worry about much debris getting close while they performed an evacuation. It was obvious to anyone looking this moon was as good as dead now, and with no space infrastructure the system was effectively a wasteland. Send the shuttles with Dr. Lee's medical staff and enough Marines to maintain order and assist with evacuation efforts. Make sure there is a tech with them. I want their system files copied. We need to know what happened. Gregory said. Keep the blink drive ready, engineering. Let's get these people on board and get ready to head home. They had learned a lot from the captives and survivors already. Farsi had been completely stripped of meaningful biomass within the first couple of weeks, including the small groups of Orions that had survived around the planet. Within 2 months the Viril had created a new hive planet and began their terraforming process. That wasn't the only systems the Viril had effectively eliminated. The few remaining Orions were an endangered species with less than 10,000 known survivors. From the information gleaned from the enemy ships in the Farsi system, the Viril had gotten all of the Orion's main systems. Most, like Farsi, already had a colony or hive in the case of the Broodling-controlled systems. But the Orions weren't the only systems they hit. Another species the Alliance had no contact with, and only the Viril system's few files showed who they had been. They had been the Furbills of the Curse systems. They had only just made it to FTL by themselves in the last decade. Needless to say, the handful of ships they valiantly mustered, while they caused significant damage on the Broodling swarm ships, was eventually defeated. Thousands against 8 would do that. Still, the damage they inflicted had caused the Broodlings to study it, believing that understanding what their enemies had done to them could in turn be adopted by them and thus used against their enemies. A worthy endeavor in the Broodling mind. He had no idea how long he stood there, observing and acknowledging the rescue. The moon had been called Kalimta 3 and once had been a habitable ecosystem transformed over thousands of years into a verdant farming community. He had gotten a call from the Neptune informing him they had spotted the Viril moon ship entering the outer system near VAT system's large asteroid belt and ordered his transports to pick up the pace if they could. Ask Neptune if their blink drive is able to cover the frigate? If it can, we might be able to manage this, he thought. Neptune's CME reports it's going to be close, sir, but he thinks they can manage it. Comms reported back. Good. Remaining estimated time for evacuation? Gregory asked. 2 hours, sir, at best guess. His TAC officer grimaced as she said it. And just over 2 hours for the Viril moon ship to reach us. Maybe a little longer if they spot the Neptune and burn after her again, Trajectory plotted. Right now I think we're the only ones it can see. Our engine signatures have to be sticking out on their sensors from their current location above the system's elliptical. He looked at the TAC screen and nodded. Prepare the darts, let's get them primed. We're going to need the room anyways, we might as well use them. Gregory said, turning to walk through the door to his office. Where was the New York? It wasn't like her Captain Borryman to just disappear. He was a canny little bastard and always looking to prove himself, and his crew, mostly comprised of Voidini, was the equal of any other in the Alliance. He had TAC run the numbers and go over their last data burst again, and the New York should have been in the VAT system by now. And wasn't on the TAC display anywhere. He looked on in his office display as the shuttles ferried survivors to his ship. The Neptune, slowed drastically by the tethered freighter, was altering course away from the Viril moon ship. The Viril moon ship appeared to be making its way toward VAT. Slowly. Probably probing for them. As long as the Phoenix stayed within the moon's shadow, it probably wasn't going to see them unless they dumped a quick burn. He looked at the clock after the shuttles slowed drastically and started to stand. He needed to be on the bridge when they blinked out shortly. As he exited his office, he noticed Sergeant Gregory walking through the command bridge doors, worry evident on his face as he motioned to Gregory he needed a moment. As he stepped up to Gregory, he leaned in and whispered so the rest of the crew couldn't hear, "We have bugs loose in the vents, Sir Private Strum and Private Phyllis were just taken to medical. Purge the vents on those decks," he ordered. But Sergeant Gregory was shaking his head. "We already have, sir," was ineffective. "The only reason we even know they are here right now is Orlana and Arnso warned me." He winced. "I need to get back, sir, I just didn't want to risk a panic by sending it over the ship's comms." He saluted, and as he started to turn, Gregory caught his heavily corded forearm. "Form a team and hunt them down." He let the man's arm go and raised his hand to the man's shoulder. "Do it yourself if you have to, Sergeant. If they're not in custody, I want them dead." He hadn't raised his voice. Sergeant Gregory nodded and replied, "Captain," before turning and leaving. Well, he thought as he looked back at the tack screen and the moonship now heading directly towards them, this was getting messy. And he didn't like messes on his ship. Get the rest of those survivors on board in the next 10 minutes and get us out of here. I want those darts ready to send, he said. If Sergeant Gregory happens to need anything over the next couple hours, you make sure he has it XO. The woman acknowledged him, still feeding orders to the flight boss on hurrying the process further. 9 minutes, 47 seconds later, the flight boss sent the bridge. Everything is packed in and secured, Captain. Weapon stations, send those darts. All of them. Sound general quarters. Gregory ordered, and almost instantly the klaxons wailed. The moon ship on his screen continued to bear down on their location. It would be able to see them as it passed over the moon's pole. At that point, the moon's shadow wouldn't hide them anymore. The massive ship just plowed through the debris field, its shields flaring green as it impacted substantial chunks. First volley hot. His XO reported as the weapons station called out, confirmed hits. Damage negligible, computers reporting. New coordinates programmed. Second volley hot. Brace for return fire in 543. Confirmed hits again, sir. No visible damage. His XO reported the weapons station already sending another volley. And reconfiguring the coordinates for the next volley to get out as fast as possible. And then it fired. A massive volley of energy beams. Evasive maneuvers helm. Engineering, get that blink drive started spooling. He barked, people moving to comply. The Phoenix bucked fairly violently at that moment. Shields at 17%, Captain. Yelled his TAC officer. Right as weapons yelled, we hit the generators, Captain. Enemy ship has no shields. Why aren't we blinking, engineering? Gregory asked. He didn't want to stand toe-to-toe with that fucking ship. Maybe if he had another carrier task group to back them up, but they just didn't carry enough to destroy the damn thing unless they got extremely lucky. And Gregory didn't like gambling with civilian lives on the line. The Neptune has blinked out, sir. Looks like it managed to take the freighter with it. His XO reported. Helm reports the starboard main engines fried after that last hit, Captain. Engineering is working on it but reports a breach in containment. It's going to take 15 minutes minimum to restart the blink drive and get it spooled back up. Last darts launched. Racks are empty. Weapons yelled. Gregory swore as the next thing he heard was his XO yelling, incoming fire. And weapons reporting, point defense activated helm. From the TAC officer, boosting shields. The Phoenix bucked again. The helm had already been moving away from the gargantuan moon ship, and with most of its generators down it could only fire a few of its energy cells. Meanwhile, the large chunks of what used to be either of the two destroyed moons started tearing large gashes along its superstructure as it continued to barrel its way through. And then Gregory heard his TAC officer report, enemy is dead in space. And then everything flickered. And the Phoenix went dark for a moment before emergency lights kicked back on. Alarms wailed on multiple systems. His XO yelled, engine failure. Her face went pale as she slammed her hand on the screen. Core jettisoned. Brace for impact. Everything went white as one of their 3 energy cores went supernova. Thanks for listening. Please leave a like and hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed the story. If you feel generous and want to support the author's work, go visit the Patreon link in the description. Any support is welcome. Until next time.